Hi, ladies. Welcome to PJ. I'm so glad you can join me. I am in my PJs and it feels so good. I am so happy to be with you tonight. Genuinely so happy to be with you, especially when we're talking about different aspects of joy. And tonight, I'm talking about joy filling the gaps. And this is a really tender, kind of personal thing to me right now because I'm experiencing some really difficult things right now. And shifts and changes and all those kinds of things, and it can make it feel like suddenly your life has a lot of not so many joyful things, and especially if they're big things, if it's kind of events, life events, or something that's been difficult that you've been knowing is coming or something like that. So I want to talk about not just this Pollyanna kind of feel when we talk about joy of, oh, of course, when things are going great, you feel so much joy. I want to talk about utilizing joy as this power that I'm talking about and as this way to fill those gaps, those yuck gaps that just kind of yawn open when difficult things are upon you. So like today, I'll give you a couple of examples. This one is a little sweet one. It's my sweet Chelsea, my 18-year-old who just graduated, and she just left today. I just sent her off at the airport to go to France for 3 months. Now, I know you're probably like, oh, so sad. Let me shed a tear. But it has been an amazing experience that we have gone through together. Finding this experience, being prayerful about it, being led to different things, how it all unfolded kind of unexpectedly. We originally were thinking she was going to do New York. And anyway, going from, working at Osmond's Design to boom, 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 now she's nannying in France. It was like an amazing process. And what's interesting is that because we went through that process and didn't hold back, and didn't worry about fears, didn't let fears dictate whether or not she did this experience. We had a sweet, tender mother-daughter experience today. And what I mean by that is sometimes we let negative experiences that are coming upon us, or the fears that we have about them, or fears about doing something or trying something, we sort of open up these gaps in our heart and our soul, and it just kind of makes us raw and vulnerable and open to negative thoughts or feelings and perceptions. When, if we will move forward in faith and we will assess all the way along how we're feeling as far as peace, love, and joy, we will be able to experience this joy that fills the gaps all the way along. And I hope that I can try to explain this learning that I've been having over this last year, because it's like a soothing oil that just sort of fills down in the cracks all the way along. So it's cracks open, almost like when your lips are chapped and they keep cracking. You have to put some balm on it so that it kind of fills in those cracks. It will keep doing that, especially if it's an emotional experience. But what I found is that because her and I went through this experience, actively acknowledging fear, actively acknowledging the negative, and doing our best to be able to combat it, that today when she left, I shed a few tears and that was it. I felt such peace. We were driving up and I looked at her and I said, I can't believe how much peace I feel. She said, I know, me too. And there's things that I don't know and I'm a little bit, anxious about and worried about, of like, how will I know about this language and that? But she said, I don't feel nervous that way. I feel peace. And that's that feeling of peace, love, joy that all comes in together. So how do we get to that place? How do you get to a place of that kind of gap-filling joy and peace where I can send her off and I feel so happy for her and not feel this worry, fear, sadness, whatever that's left over? I want you to consider for a second what kind of attitude you have towards the unexpected. What kind of feelings does that bring up in you? Do you like to have everything just in its place? Do you like to know what's coming? Or are you the type that's like, I don't even want to know what's coming. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I think a lot of women really struggle with not having things in place, because then we feel like we already have so many variables out of control that when things aren't in place that we can control, we get even more wigged out. And when we're in that state, it's really hard to feel joy, to feel this lining that is available through everything that we go through. And I know that that is true. It's hard to access that joy because we feel more of the worry and the concern rather than we feel it's okay if I I love it. What? Never feel that. It's okay to be able to say, I don't know what's coming, but I know this. I know that for every hard thing that happens, every painful thing that happens, every unfair, unjust thing that happens, joy is attached. Joy is part of that experience. It's part of the same coin, two sides of the coin, and it's part of it. I merely need to choose to access it. What I find with women is that we tend to get into a fear mentality and then a white knuckle coping skill where I can go, I can keep going, I can keep going, I keep going until we just absolutely crash. And then we're eating a pan of brownies, or we're yelling at our children, or we're just, it's just this feeling of out of control. And then you just, and instead we can actively seek for that feeling of joy, because part of joy is peace. There's a lot of aspects, like a diamond, there's a lot of facets to joy. We can feel that peace, love, and joy that is that companion to whatever it is we're going through. So may I first suggest, stop the attitude of white knuckling and that you must go it alone, like some Marine on a deserted island. We're not. We have all kinds of help around us. And I'm not sure what your thoughts and feelings are in your belief systems, but as a faith-based woman, I know that God is there, that Jesus Christ is there, that the Spirit is there, and that angels are there for me, and that I have neighbors and friends and family members that I can turn to for that help that I need. And it's just me assessing and saying, what will help me feel the joy as I go through this experience? And again, not waiting until you get to the end to try to experience joy. If I had waited with Chelsea to feel joy today, I would have been sadly disappointed, because it wasn't that kind of joy. The joy was a fruition of all of the highs, lows, in-betweens, and revelation and different experiences that we'd had all the way along that just was so sustaining today, so that I could send her off on that plane and feel so good. So that's the first thing that I want to share with you. The second thing is to believe. Believe that joy is a real skill. It is a real coping skill. It's a real thing that can be accessed. It's a real thing that can be used in whatever situation you're going through. You know, what's funny is that different people, as I've talked about her going on this trip, they've been like, oh my goodness, you're letting her go that far away? And what about, and oh my gosh, aren't you? And I'm like, lady, will you stop? Not only are you like starting to freak my daughter out, but these are your fears, not mine. I've already gone down through those, and we have done something about them. We went with a reputable agency that's been doing this for years and years and years. They vetted the family. They vetted Chelsea. We connected with the family. We chose, one was given to us and we said, nope, don't like the hit off of that. We chose this next one. We went, yes, total washover feeling of this is the one. And then we Skyped with them several times, watched how they interacted. It was beautiful. This family is adorable. She has her own little cottage, so she has her safe place if she needs that. She has everything in place for her to make sure this is a positive, wonderful experience. There's nothing more to be done. So either we live a life of fear of, oh no, what could happen? Or we move forward in faith and we take care of all the things that we can take care of to make this a wonderful experience. So that's the second thing. The third thing is kind of along those lines, is that when someone sort of gives you those feelings or makes you feel less than, or gives you feelings that would give you a reason to not feel joy about whatever it is that you're experiencing or going to experience or thinking that you need to take care of, don't pick it up. Another example is just this last weekend, there was a big family event in our family, and I and my girls, some of my girls, were not invited. And on paper and emotionally, it could have been this really justifiably sad, mean, horrible, resentful kind of experience, where it could have been like, what, are you kidding? And you could go down through all the list of justifiable reasons why this is so unfair or whatever. And I remember several weeks ago, a feeling thought that I can only translate as, don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. Let it go. And then have joy. Like, why are you forgetting about this whole joy principle that I've been teaching you about for this last year? And it was this beautiful awareness that I need to not pick this up. And then the last principle is I need to actively schedule joy. I have to put that on my calendar. I have to schedule it. So if I know that there's something coming, so for example, this family event and all of the emotions attending that, and even some negative pushback that came with it, even though I wasn't involved, I had to schedule joy. And do you know what? It turned out to be an incredible day. And I'm not being Pollyanna. and this is another thing that kind of drives me crazy, this whole thing of don't pick it up, is that there were some people who afterwards were asking me, how did you feel? And I could tell they did not believe that I felt as calm and as peaceful and as joyful as I did. And I thought, well, one, I don't have to prove it to you, but two, I felt kind of bad for them that they really could not comprehend that I could still be in a space of joy that didn't depend on somebody else or something else going a certain way. And I think this is something that women, we really have to get our minds wrapped around this, because we tend to allow other people to determine our level of joy. And that's giving away our control. And so really and truly, ladies, consider in your life how much you're letting somebody else control your joy factor, your joy level. Because so often it's not about them. It's really under your control. You just have to be a big girl and pull up those big girl panties and say, no, I'm choosing joy. So for example, on this Saturday, when I could have been under the covers with a box of chocolates, sobbing to a friend about how unfair and how unjust this was, and going through a litany of why these things should not be so, no. First thing I did was get a spa service, and it was the best thing ever. I swear I was in heaven. And sometimes it goes really fast, but this time it seemed to be extended, and it just slow and wonderful. And it was beautiful. So I came out beautifully calm, met my daughters at one of our favorite places for lunch, laughed, joked, bantered. You know, the kind of moments that you think, I wish I could have this in a bottle, because you're making funnies right in the moment that you later on, like even hours later, we made a funny comment and we were all laughing. It was one of those experiences and moments. It was wonderful. And then after that, we all went to the LDS temple and we served there. And it was wonderful. And then we jammed. I will not say how fast. Hope there's no policeman watching, but we jammed to the Hale Theater, and we went to see Sense and Sensibility. And one of my daughters did not even want to go to it originally, but she was doing it simply as a goodbye thing for Chelsea. But I'll tell you, she did not want to go. Me, avid Austinite, was like, well, just try. And they did a fabulous job of making it modern and hysterical. I would never have used that word about Sense and Sensibility. It was fantastic. And now we have more inside funnies about it. It's just so great. And then we stopped at Neater's on the way home, got some pastries, and then we came home, got pajamas on, and watched Black Panther. You could not believe what a wonderful day that was. I mean, seriously, it was like all of these little things were filled, and I consciously chose those things, set those aside, put that time, energy, money, resources into that day to make sure that whatever was happening was combated with an equal amount of incredible, wonderful joy. Now, really, truly, I have to tell you, we got to the end of that night, and my daughters and I were like, that was one of the best days we've had. That was so memorable, just beautiful. And I know it was a gift from above, but I actively scheduled that joy, knowing what it was going to be about. Now, that may look different for you. And it may be that it's shopping for you, or it may be just a day reading up in the mountains, or whatever that looks like for you. You right now jot down some ideas of, if I were to schedule joy, what would that look like to me? If I knew ahead of time I had this event coming that was or I had this situation I had to deal with that was a family reunion's coming, a trip that you're taking, a family project that needs to be done, and you're like, whatever it is, think for just a minute, what can you do to schedule joy? Maybe it's not going to happen on that day, but maybe you can do it beforehand to fill up, or schedule it after so you can decompress and kind of get cleared out. But if you possibly can on the day of, that would be so great to do some coping skills then too. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to a minute to just write down, what kinds of joy do you think you could schedule? Go ahead. Okay, write down any ideas that come to you. Remember, don't self-edit. Just write down those thoughts of, if you were to schedule joy, what things would you schedule? Like I shared that favorite spa service. I scheduled that ahead of time. I scheduled those tickets to that theater ahead of time. I knew that if I scheduled that joy and I paid for it, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take it. I'm not going to just let something else get in the way. So think about how you can schedule that joy. Then back on this whole concept of as far as the things that you can do that are really doable, I would love, feel free to share what are some of the things that you can do to schedule joy. If you're in a place that you can type it in or share it, would love to see that. I love that. Something that makes you laugh, something that makes you lighten up. I love watching funny movies when I'm feeling down. And to me, the funny that I love is that British wry sense of humor that just makes me laugh out loud. I love that kind of stuff. And it just seems to make life get back in perspective. So consider what those things might look like for you for scheduling. I love that friends. The friends that always pick you up. Absolutely. I've got another hard thing that's this week, and I already was picking up the phone, texting and saying, hey, want to do lunch? And I already have it planned out on that day what I am doing. And I have to tell you honestly, again, this is not a Pollyanna. You know me well enough that I'll be sitting here sobbing if that's the case. But I am so looking forward to this day now. And it doesn't change, doesn't negate the difficulty of the situation that may be stressing you out, or the factors of it, or the people of it. That doesn't necessarily shift that, but it shifts the way you look at it and the way you approach it and the way that you anticipate it. So often, women's anxiety and stress comes so far in advance of the anticipation of that event or person or whatever. Instead of switching that focus and focusing that anticipation on the joy factor. What are you going to do that day or the day before? And focusing on that. Because guess what? In the moment, you're going to do or be who you are and what you're going to do. You can practice ahead of time and you can prepare ahead of time, but the bottom line is you just are going to be who you are. So how much better to focus on the joy and what you're going to experience the day before, or the things you put in place on the day of or the day after, so that that is your focus. And then when you do respond to something, you can respond from a place that's a little bit more full and balanced, rather than your back has been up for about a week and then you're just whoa and reacting to whatever's happening. So I have to share a funny. I don't know if this is maybe a good thing for me to share, but I'm kind of totally cracking up because one of the things that is happening is that my ex is getting remarried. Okay. So the new lady, I think she's really nice. And I honestly have no negative feelings, which probably sounds like denial. Maybe there's layers that will come out later. I don't know, but all I can tell you is I couldn't be happier. Anyway, but I just wanted to say I am really, really happy. And so I went to go drop off my sweet little guy, and I seriously can't believe I did this. But anyway, I was so happy. We were dancing to music as we were going, and I'm going up to girls camp. And anyway, so we were like, hey, this is great. So I happened to pull up right when the new soon-to-be wife is walking up with a family member of his side. And I get out and I say, hey, love you, bride. And I give a smooch and everything. And here she comes. And I seriously, it just bubbled from within me. I just went up and gave her a hug. I was like, congratulations. And it sounds so goofy, but I was seriously happy for her. And I said, congratulations, and just gave her a squeeze. And then I got in the car as I was driving away, and I thought, I don't know about protocol. Maybe that made her feel uncomfortable, but hey, she responded and gave me a hug back. I mean, she's going to be a part of my life for a long time. So, may as well start on a good foot. But the point that I'm making is that this joy for me is not a made-up thing. This is not, I'm going to shop till I drop and I'm going to feel good. I'm going to show them that I feel good. It's not that. It is this feeling of sustained nourishment. And like I said, as I fill my soul with joy, tangible, spiritual, all of those spa, whatever, as I fill myself with those different aspects, it's like this refreshing water that's all the way full up here, and I can dip from it all day long. And so when I am in a moment to respond, I literally respond in a way that was genuine for me, and I didn't have to try to think it ahead and anticipate it. I just was me. And that always feels so good when you are your genuine self. Even if it's something you look back and say, well, maybe I wish I wouldn't have been so genuine. Maybe I would have tempered that back. even if you're in a spot like that in the future, there still is a joy that comes from knowing that you are authentic. So I want to share with you, I happened to read Wayne Dyer. I get these things from the Hay House, and his, was it yesterday or today, was on joy, the importance of joy. And I thought, it's a sign. So I want to share just two thoughts that he had from this. It's just so good. He says, there's so much, so I'm just going to condense it down. He says, our life must be open to Spirit's guidance in order for us to feel inspired. When the calendar becomes frenzied, full of unnecessary turbulence, because we fail to simplify, we won't be able to hear those long distance calls from our source, and we'll slip into stress, anguish, and even depression. So whatever it takes to feel joy, we simply must act upon it. And then he says, regardless of our current station in life, we have a spiritual contract to make joy our constant companion. Do you believe that that's true? I do. I know that as I cultivate this, like I cultivate my gardens that don't turn out every year, but I cultivate it like a banshee, I make it my companion. And it says, so we must learn to make a conscious choice, schedule, joy, to say no to anything that takes us away from an inspired life. This can be done gently while clearly showing others that this is how we choose to live. Like I said, some people were like, oh, you couldn't have been that happy about, your whatever happened last week and what's happening this week. And you know what? I have been. And I just had to say, I can do it gently by just showing others, yes, you can live this. So then he says, we can start by turning down requests that involve actions that don't correspond with our inner knowing about why we're here. And then he says, keep in mind that it's only difficult or impossible to accomplish joy when we engage in resistant thinking. If we know that we don't have to live a life stuffed with non-joyful activities, there are things that we can't not choose, but we can still choose to do them with some joy. Then we can choose the way of inspiration, opting for joy. I love that phrase. Opting for joy involves giving ourselves time for play instead of scheduling a workaholic nightmare. And I say that for moms. We are workaholic nightmares sometimes. We just go, 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 go. By giving ourselves free time to read, meditate, exercise, and walk in nature, we're inviting the guidance that's waiting patiently to come calling with inspirational messages. We deserve to feel joy. It's our spiritual calling. Isn't that beautiful? That's what I believe Jesus Christ did for us with his grace. The atonement, the grace that he gave us is this ability to feel joy. And we just walk past it every day in our whining and complaining instead of reaching on the shelf and saying, I'm going to choose joy right now. I'm going to open and unwrap that joy and I'm going to have some right now. So I want you to consider some of those things, opting for joy, making a contract to say, where was that up here? I love that thing, the spiritual contract to feel joy. We have a spiritual contract to make joy our constant companion. Love that. So I would love any other thoughts if you want to type them in and share them with me about what I'm talking about. Is there anything that's resonating with you or anything that you're feeling a takeaway on this? Anything that's coming to you? I love some of these comments like this. It's having faith that everything will work out even if it's not what we expected. Create the meaning, joy in the moment, not wait for it to be manifested. That's elevated thinking. Wow. I love this. Maybe she said that's a huge deal being a mom too. Be you as a mom, not someone else, and you will find that you love it more. Oh, is that so true? The first joy stealer for me is trying to keep up with the neighbor or someone else and try to mom their way. Doesn't work for me. So I love that comment. That's so true. Take 1 minute, if you would, and just consider the things that I've just shared with you. And one thing that might be a takeaway that you could use over the next few days. So I have to go back and try to remember what I shared. So the first thing is to remember not to white knuckle on your own, not to think I've just got to do this and get through it with no joy. And I'll have joy at the very end for 35 seconds when I've made it through, right? So don't white knuckle. And then the second thing is do not pick it up. Okay. Oh yeah. Do not pick it up. And the third thing is to believe that joy is a real coping skill, to believe that you can access it, to believe that it really exists in all the negative situations that we are involved in and that come to us. And the last thing is to schedule joy. So take a look at your week this week. Is there a day that's heinous? Is there an experience that you're not looking forward to? Then actively combat it with an extra measure of joy. So take 30 seconds and either put it in the chat thing or write it down for yourself. I'm stealing another drink. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Anything you want to share? I will not compel it, I promise, but we'll sit here for 15 minutes until you share. No, I'm kidding. You are so awesome. All right, well, no forcing it, because you know what? It's pajama joy night. It's PJ joy night, and we don't have to do anything we don't want to do in this half hour. And I already ate my yummy protein bar, my treat thing with peanut butter and chocolate. It was so good, so that I could talk decently to you. So hopefully you've got some good takeaways. No excuse for not having joy this week. If you don't take joy, it's your deal. I'm watching. So let me know. Post on Facebook, our VIP. If you've bought a program and you're a member of the VIP, post it there. If not, on the regular Back to Basics or Connie Sokol, post. Let us know how you're doing on this joy and what it does for you. I can promise you it will change your life. When you really start taking joy seriously, some serious joy, you will see miracles happening in your life. You will feel the changes all the way through the spiritual, physical, emotional, all of those aspects. You will look back and say, wow, I was really a furrowed brow wench, wasn't I? But now I'm joyful. So keep me posted. I love you all so. And stay connected, stay joyful, and remember, it's coming. You got this. Back to Basics.